Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Reviewing Comics with me, your host, Alexander Turbin. Today we're going to be going over Cry for Dawn, number 9, from 1992. It's an anthology of sorts by Joseph Michael Linsner and Joe Monks and a bunch of other artists and creators and stuff. But we're basically looking at the first storyline, which is Joseph Michael Linsner's work. And really, Cry for Dawn is all about his work. For me, I'm not really into the other artists all that much. And they never really went on to do the things that Joseph Michael Linsner has done with his Dawn and his other works. And he's one of my favorite artists and creators, so I just wanted to go over Cry for Dawn. This is the earliest Cry for Dawn I have. I think I might have sold, I think I had 7, but I might have sold it. At some point, I would like to get all of them, either in trade paperback or in their original form, but they're a little pricey at that point. You can get this for like $10 or so. But before we get into that, I'd like to show you my own work. This is Random Access. We're up to number 25 coming out this month. Excuse me. Actually, it will be out this week. The end of next week anyway. You can get these at patreon.com/Alexander Turbin, and it's $3 for 12 pages of full size, and this is a black and white issue, but I'm going back to color. This month is going back to color, so I'm actually happy about that because I've actually learned some new techniques and stuff like that in my digital coloring education, so that's always fun to do new stuff. They have backups by Christopher Knox and Paul Corjon. And like I said, you can pick these up at Patreon. You can also get them at alexanderturbin.com, which is also where you'd find Mutandis and The Forlorn and Cyrene and Queller and all of the other works that I've done previously in my comic book making career. Or you can just message me at alexturbin0441 at Yahoo, which is my email, or alexturbin0441 at Instagram. So, Cry for Dawn, number 9. So we're going to go into the story, and I'm not really going to rate it because at the end, well, maybe I will. I always say that I'm not going to, but then I do. So we won't start with that. Here's the index page with all the different stories and stuff. But like I said, we're really interested in the first one, Angelique. So as I said in Dawn, because Dawn was a book that I think he put out quite a bit after the Cry for Dawns, maybe like 5 or 6 years or something like that, which was really I think is probably a culmination of his artistic journey and everything he wanted to do, because it's in full color. It's published by a bigger comic book company, Sirius, which I think maybe he had a hand in creating. I don't know that for a fact, but so Joseph Michael Linsner, if you're watching, please let us know exactly what happened. Also, another thing, I think that he and Joe Monks, who created Cry for Dawn, had a falling out of sorts, and I don't know this for a fact either. I think I just read it somewhere, but I think they had a falling out, and that's why some of this hasn't been reprinted, and also why he moved on to just Dawn and stopped doing this. But I don't know that for a fact. That could be all hearsay. I don't really know. But yeah, let's get into this story. As you know, I say let's get into the story, and then I go off on a side tangent. But as you know, Joseph Michael Linsner's writing and his stories are very, they're often nebulous. They're not just about, they're not a basic thing that's about the storyline. They always have some subtext going with them, whether it's about art or religion or romance or any kind of philosophical or anything like that. So, which is one of the reasons that I really love him. He's not just like, there's so many artists that are just there to draw pretty women and draw beautiful women and sexy poses and nudity and stuff like that. That is not Joseph Michael Linsner at all. It's kind of like, he reminds me a little bit of Tenacious D, where Tenacious D, they were and they are about subtext, and they're about deeper meanings, and they're about artistic integrity and being, delving into the true artistry of what you can create. And that's really what he does in all of his books. And it's not just, a pretty face. So let's get into the story. I say again. So we're at a dinner table, and this is obviously the main characters, I guess, but he is listening to the person behind him who is talking about having sex with bigger women instead of supermodels, and he just is kind of listening in, and he's not really paying attention to the group that he's with. And then finally, they finally get his attention, and his girlfriend or whatever, they're talking about marriage and stuff, and he's not really interested in that. It's a subtext for him not being interested in his girlfriend, him not being really interested in his life. It reminds me quite a bit, this whole story reminds me quite a bit of Mage, because Mage starts out, Kevin Matchstick is, which I will be going into in depth at some point. He's bored with his life. He's in the doldrums of his life. He just doesn't know where he's going. He doesn't really care about a lot of stuff that happens to him or whatever. And he's just like, kind of stuck and doesn't care. This is what the main character is talking about. David is his name. That's the main character's name. And he's just bored. He's bored with his life. He's bored with his girlfriend, bored with his job, bored with everything. And then he sees, but being bored, he takes an interest in all of these things that go around him. Like when we ever see him at a dinner table or anything like that, he's always listening and focusing in on what's going around him instead of what's really right in front of him. So he sees this hot looking girl walk along, and he's paying attention to her, but his girlfriend is like into some other thing. Haha, isn't he so funny? Which he doesn't care about at all. He only focuses on this dark-haired woman, and makes this excuse to leave the dinner table and kind of meet up with or try to find this dark-haired woman and see what she's all about, kind of leaving his girlfriend in lurch, leaving his friends in the lurch, and just kind of taking off, making a dumb excuse as to why he's doing it. One of the funny things I find hilarious about this is that he kind of is a suave guy, you would think that he looked really great, but look at his hairline. Why would Joseph Michael Linsner have this hairline, which, is not particularly handsome or whatever, but he chooses this, and I think I know why he chooses it. He chooses it because this is an average guy. This is an average dude going about his life, and he's bored with his average life, and he wants something a little bit more, but he's not fantastic looking. It's kind of like these guys, these two hillbillies talking about having sex with bigger girls instead of, whatever, they're actresses or models or whatever. So he feels a little bit like these two guys in the fact that he is a normal guy. He's a normal business person. He's in a suit, yeah, but he's not debonair dashing, and he doesn't act debonair dashing or anything. He's just kind of an average guy. So he makes up this excuse to leave the dinner, and the girlfriend says, "I love you," and he says, see you later." So he never actually says that "I love you" to her, and it's a little bit odd that he's so reluctant to end that relationship and chase after this one, because he chases after her. He finds her name's Angelique, and he just kind of they just have this little roundabout conversation where they're really kind of talking about nothing, and he is acting suave, and he is trying to charm her and stuff, and it's just kind of a little bit of dialogue so that he can get her into bed, and he does, because she's younger and maybe she's looking for somebody a little bit more normal. So they're having sex, and she's got this choker on her neck beforehand, and maybe that's one of the things that gets David so intrigued in her. She takes the choker off, and there's these remnants of a scar around her neck where the sutures were, and the cut across her neck. He later finds out that she, at 14, tried to slice her own throat. So she's a suicidal, and they just kind of have sex and stuff. And then it kind of goes through this whole thing where it tells about her having sex. And this is probably the one thing that I don't love about the book. I know he only has 21 pages to show the story, because he he's the main part of this anthology, but it is an anthology. It's not just a story. I much would have rather seen this in comic book form. I know one of the great tenets is show, don't tell. And sometimes that is completely true. Sometimes it's completely false. But this time I kind of think that it's true. And because I really wish this was like a 3 or 4 page montage of her telling him about her suicide and her getting out of juvie or whatever, I think. And she needs a psychiatrist. She does all of these crazy things. And she was held, not captive, but held as like a consort or whatever by this older guy who paid all of her bills and stuff. But she wanted her freedom. And that's what she says here. She needs her space, her personal freedom. And he's just like, right. And girls hate you because you're not like them. And your best friends are always guys because they seem to know some kind of truth which evades most girls. And she's like, right. How'd you know that? So he knows a little bit about relationships. He's been in a few relationships, and he knows a little bit about women and stuff, or he thinks he does. He doesn't. I mean, this is from his own egotistical perspective, and it could be completely erroneous for so many other people. But he thinks he has a handle on what life is, and he's not surprised by anything, which leads to his boredom and him trying to get with this Angelique. So he goes home to his girlfriend, and they have sex, and it's boring. He doesn't even ejaculate or anything like that. He just kind of fancifully goes through it and through the motions, and he's really not into it. I do like this little thing here. Not sure what it has to do with anything. But it's just Joseph Michael Linsner doing awesome, beautiful stuff. So then they're at dinner again, and she's talking and blah, blah, blah. She's talking. So Mary says, that's disgusting. Nobody really does that. Then blah, 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 which he just hears blah, 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 blah. But in the next to him, the table next to him, he hears exactly what this guy's talking about. So it just kind of really focuses in on the fact that he doesn't really enjoy his life that much. And he just keeps thinking about Angelique, and he doesn't really want to be with this girlfriend at all. And it ends with her saying, do you think I'm crazy? And he's like, nope. So Angelique, on the next page, the next scene, they're by a tree out in the fields or whatever. Angelique asks why he's with Francis, and he didn't know she knew about Francis or anything, but they just kind of have this little dialogue about being romantic and why he's in love with her, and Angelique's like, you're gonna love me and I'm gonna break your heart and all that kind of stuff. Again, it's Joseph Michael Linsner talking about romance and love, which is probably his love and death are his two biggest things, enjoying writing about and drawing and stuff like that. Which, when you look at all of the great writers, those are the two tenets that most people enjoy reading and enjoy writing about, because almost everybody falls in love, and that's part of their daily life. Same thing with death. Everybody has to face death. It's a thing that everybody has to deal with. So they're just kind of talking and, going on about their romance. And he says, I don't need the romance. And she says, you're already lost. Like she's already captured him. So they're having sex again. And she says, I want you to sign a suicide pact. And then he just like kind of freaks out. He's like, no way am I doing that. I'm not going to kill myself for anybody. I don't care. So she's trying to get him to do things for her, and he's not into it, and he's just not going to, fall down that rabbit hole. It's kind of, I think what he's trying to say, if Michael Linsner's trying to say, is that being in love is like, you can either be all in or you can be all out. It's very hard to be kind of wishy-washy about being in love. And so she keeps saying, and they talk about the death suicide pact or whatever, and she's saying that if one of them dies, she wants the other one to follow because she doesn't feel it's right for one of them to live while the other one isn't. And he's saying that that it goes against the Roman Catholic Church and that suicides go to hell, and he doesn't want to go to hell. He's not going to go to hell for anybody. And she says, she ends it with, but you know that you love me. And he hasn't said it, and he never probably would. He never says it to Frances either, which she, is very cognizant of that fact, the fact that he doesn't say that he loves her ever. They're watching TV. The next scene, they're watching TV. She asks about his ex-girlfriends, and he's like, do you want me to really tell you about this stuff? And she's like, yeah, I want to hear about it. So then he kind of goes back and talks about Suzanne and Krissa and Marlene and Cynthia. Cynthia, I think, was his real true love, and because he kind of goes back and forth between talking about her and gives her a little bit more detail, and he says that she was a witch. So he's got a little bit of this already in his history or whatever. And Frances asks if he would have married any of them, and she says no. And she says, why are you with me? And he says, I need some stability in my life. And she says, but do you love me? And he just kind of looks up. He's not going to answer that. He's never going to answer that. He does say yes. No, she says, but do you love me? And he says, yes. Then why can't you ever say it? So he never actually comes out and says, I love you. He just will kind of go along with whatever she's saying. And the phone rings, and it's Angelique. Frances is not impressed, and she wants him to grab a sledgehammer and an axe and to come over. And he doesn't know why or whatever. And what does it say? That she wants an axe and a sledgehammer. Shovel and sledgehammer. That's it, not an axe. And so she's like, I all right, fine, I'll come over. And Frances knows what's going on. It's Angelique, obviously. She's not stupid. And she says, you're not as smart as you think you are. So he leaves, and she says, I hope that you really, truly find love. He gets to Angelique's apartment or whatever, house or whatever, and she starts to get him aroused, and then she takes him into the other room, and she has killed somebody and tortured him, and because you see all of this blood here, and it's a satanic witch's ritual, so she is a witch. And he just starts laughing because he's done something like this before, but it's never been quite this vile or this intricate or in this detail. And so he's just like, I give up, you win. I quit. What does that mean? It means that in order to be involved with you, I'd have to be either desperate or suicidal. And he thinks that he's not. So he's going to, I don't know, be with her or not be with her. I don't know. I don't know what I quit means either. She doesn't know what it means. But she says, I don't want you to kill yourself. What I want you to do is help me with this body. First, I'll help you cut it into smaller pieces. And then she explains to him to go to the interstate in the morning, right before rush hour, and kind of drop the body parts all along the interstate, where people will run over the body with their cars and stuff, and it'll look like roadkill, which is pretty ingenious if you ask me. He does it. He does what she says, and then he has all of these weird flashbacks. I don't know what this means. This mechanical hand with a hammer, and then this stuff. It's all, like I said, he's so nebulous in his artwork and his writing. It's sometimes it just doesn't make any sense. But it makes a sense in an aesthetic way, or it makes a sense in a symbolic way. So much of his work is symbolic and has such symbolism that you really have to kind of just trust that he has a plan, and just to kind of follow along with it. So David has done all of he asked, and he just has more of this symbolic representation of good and evil, and love, and here's some suicidal kind of stuff, and it's just all craziness. But it's also makes a lot of sense in the representation of what he is doing. He goes back to Angelique's. He grabs her by the throat. He's gonna kill her. He knows that she's crazy and that she's gonna just be more and more trouble. But she starts to beg for it, or she starts to grab his ass like she's into him trying to kill her. And the funny thing is, I once had a very similar experience with this, where I had a significant other where I was kind of, pretend choking or whatever, and she was like grabbing my hand and making it like, and she kept saying, "Kill me, kill me." And she was very troubled. She ended up going to a mental institute, and it's not as romantic as you think. Having somebody like that go into a place like that, it's just troubling and it's sad. And she had a lot of issues. She was it's just a horrible situation. So I fully understand this, and how disgusted he was, because I was disgusted at the same time that she was like, "Kill me, kill me." It's a disgusting thought, and it's horrific, and it doesn't go with any kind of sexual fantasy or whatever. And he says, "Is this all a test?" And she's like, "What do you mean?" He says, "I'm leaving." And she says, does that mean you pass or fail?" And he says, "You tell me." Tell me you love me." "Angelique, what's all this about? Why did you kill that guy?" "He was a sacrifice so that I could win you. Now, tell me you love me." And I think I'm going to hell. At least you won't be alone. He doesn't say it, but he thinks it. That is kind of him saying that, "I'm giving myself up to you. Your spell worked, and I'm yours now." So it all kind of wraps around, and really he went after her for something, and much like the White Stripes song, I can't remember the name of the song, but then she ends up capturing him. So it kind of all wraps around nicely in the story, which almost all of the Cry for Dawn stories do, the Michael Linsner ones anyway, do have a conclusion like that, where it all kind of makes sense, and the story kind of wraps around into itself. As always, I think the writing's fantastic. I think the dialogue's great. I think the atmosphere is fantastic, and the plot and story, it's really just a wonderful, short little one-off story, and I really, really enjoyed it. I love his art. It's fantastic. It's beautiful. His women are beautiful. His guys, his men, I mean, every artist falls into the same kind of trap, where you kind of draw the same people exactly the same, and women and men, and everybody has that problem in comic books. It's just, trying to do your best or whatever. And it is what it is, but it's not so prevalent, because he does have different hairstyles and stuff like that, and they do have different dialogue, and everything like that. So I really do love that. The only thing that I don't really love about this issue is the Zipatone or Duo Shade. I can never remember which what. The one where you use the chemicals is Duo Shade or Zipatone. I can't remember. Anybody in the comment section, please remind me. I don't particularly love it. I really wish this was a gray wash. He usually did gray washes in his other works, and I really truly wish that he had done it with this. This is probably way faster for him. Maybe he was doing a time crunch. I think in the beginning it says something about them being behind, so maybe it was a time crunch. But it's just not as good as his gray washes. His gray washes are fantastic, and they're beautiful, and they're wonderful. But it also kind of goes along with the story, because everything is very gray tone, gray, like she kills somebody and it's gray, suicidal, gray, love, gray. It's all kind of an emotional impacting thing, where the Zipatone or Duo Shade or whatever you call it, it's just kind of, it makes sense in the story. And as the story went along, I kind of grew to like it a little bit more than I did at the very beginning. The very beginning, I kind of didn't like it at all, and it was very jarring. Maybe this is also him getting better at it as the pages go along, and maybe using it not quite so much. And there's also a lot of shadows and stuff, so that's probably another reason why he did this. But yeah, I'm going to give this, like I said, I wasn't going to rate it, but like I said, I always do. So I'm going to give this a 9. I really loved it. I love his art. The art probably propels it a little bit higher than it possibly could be, but the story is really fantastic, and it's just a quick little one-off. It's a little bit. Cry for Dawn is a little bit like, for me, it's like those old horror Eries and stuff like that back in the 50s, 40s, 50s, where it was like horror anthologies and stuff, which just had like twisty endings. But these are a little bit more in depth, a little bit more natural, a little bit more lateral. It's not going to have some kind of weird, crazy twist in the end, but it's going to wrap around itself, and it's going to really kind of make sense. And I really enjoy it a little bit more than the, oh my God, that happened, they came back to life and they shot him kind of thing. It's just something I enjoy a little bit more than that. It's a little bit more quiet. It's a little bit more subtle. He's got a lot of subtleties that I wish I had in my artwork and my stories, and I try to have in them. But there's a lot going on here for it being subtle at the same time. So anyway, I'm giving it a 9, and I really think it's fantastic. And anybody that's interested in any kind of either good girl or art, or even just good stories and art, give Cry for Dawn a try, because I really love it, and I think it's fantastic. But if this is your first time at the channel, I always go over 80s, 90s indie comics and hard to find books and stuff like that. And so please consider subscribing, hitting the notification bell, and giving me a thumbs up if this is your kind of stuff, because I'll be doing more indie comics, that is for sure. So thanks for watching, and have a great weekend, and keep on creating.